Decoding snake plant. Leaves, what their curls and colors mean, and how to fix them. Hello, earthly souls, and welcome back to Earthly Delights. If you found your way here, I already know something about you. You're the kind of person who notices the quiet details, like how a leaf bends toward the light, or how the colors shift when a plant is thirsty. You're someone who feels peace in the rustle of green after a long day, who rearranges pots for that perfect glow by the window, who checks the soil with your fingertips because caring for plants is never just routine, it's devotion. Today, we begin a journey into the secret language of the snake plant, one of the most resilient companions in our homes. Those curling edges, the fading stripes, the sudden yellow or brown tips. They're not random. They're signals, quiet messages your plant is sending, waiting for you to understand. And once you learn to decode them, you'll not only save your plant from struggle, but you'll unlock a deeper connection with it, one that makes every corner of your home feel alive and full of meaning. So, settle in with your favorite leafy friend nearby, and let's explore what your snake plant is really trying to tell you. And before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights, because here we grow more than plants, we grow presence. My mom chose to meet the plant tough but not invincible. The snake plant has earned a reputation as indestructible, the perfect set-it-and-forget-it houseplant. But let's set the record straight. While it is hardy, it is far from invincible. Officially known today as Dracaena trifasciata, once called Sansevieria, this plant comes from the dry, rocky regions of West Africa. There, it endures long stretches of drought, bursts of sunlight, in nights that dip cooler than you might expect. That background explains so much about how it behaves in our homes. It's true the snake plant tolerates neglect better than most. You can miss a watering or leave it in a shadowy corner for a while, and it will keep standing tall. But here's the hidden truth. Tolerance isn't the same as preference. Just because it survives doesn't mean it thrives. And that is where many plant parents, myself included, years ago, misunderstand it. Think of your snake plant as a quiet guest in your home. It won't complain loudly like a fern or collapse suddenly like a peace lily. Instead, it whispers through its leaves. A curl here, a color shift there, a softening at the base. If you learn to watch closely, you'll catch these signs before they become problems. That's what this series is about. Decoding those messages so your snake plant doesn't just get by, it glows. And the first step is learning a simple system, a framework to translate every curl and color change into clear answers. That's what we'll explore next. 2. Leaf decoder framework, the 3-step triage. Before we jump into each symptom, let me share the secret tool that every plant parent should keep in their back pocket, a simple 3-step framework I call the leaf decoder. Think of it as your translator, helping you read what your snake plant's leaves are quietly trying to say. Step 1. Check the environment. Where is your plant sitting? Is it too far from the window, exposed to harsh midday sun, or perhaps sitting in the draft of an air conditioner? Light and temperature are the first clues, and they often explain more than we realize. Step 2. Look below the surface. Pull back the curtain on its pot and soil. Does the mix drain quickly, or does it hold water like a sponge? Is the pot too roomy, keeping the soil wet for weeks? Snake plants don't show distress immediately, so by the time the leaves react, the roots may have been in trouble for a while. And step 3, inspect for pests and disease. Thrips, spider mites, and mealybugs may be tiny, but the marks they leave are not. Silvery streaks, papery curls, or cottony clusters are red flags that the problem isn't water or light at all. It's uninvited guests. By moving through this triage, environment, roots, pests, you avoid guessing and start diagnosing. No more pouring water when it isn't thirsty or blaming the soil when it's really the light. From here on, every curl, color shift, or soft spot can be decoded with confidence. And to prove it, let's start with the most common message of all, curling leaves. 3. Curling leaves, a story of water or pests. Few things worry plant parents more than waking up to see their snake plant's proud, upright leaves curling inward like folded ribbons. But here's the truth. Curls are not random quirks. They're signals. And if you read them correctly, you'll know exactly what your plant needs. When the curls are tight and wrinkly, especially near the tips, it's often a plea for water. In its native land, the snake plant stores moisture in its thick leaves to survive long droughts. If the reserves run low, the leaves curl inward to conserve what's left. A deep, thorough watering, followed by a proper dry out, usually restores their strength. On the other hand, if the curls look floppy and weak at the base, that's often a very different problem: too much water. Ironically, overwatered roots can suffocate, meaning the plant can't drink even when the soil is wet. The leaves mimic thirst, curling and bending, but the real issue is root rot. And then there are curls with a papery, silvery texture. That's your clue to check for pests like thrips or spider mites. They feed by sucking the juice out of the leaves, leaving behind rolled edges and streaks. A quick inspection under the leaf or a gentle tap on white paper will often reveal the culprits. So the next time you see curling, don't panic, decode. Ask yourself, thirsty, drowning, or under attack? Once you know the cause, the fix becomes clear. And with that skill, you're ready to read the next set of clues, the colors written on the leaves themselves. 4. Color clues, the leaf color index. Color is the snake plant's second language, and it speaks in subtle but powerful ways. When your once deep green leaves begin to fade or lose their stripes, it's rarely just old age. More often, it's light starvation. In a dim hallway or far corner, the plant reduces chlorophyll, leaving pale, washed-out leaves. Move it closer to bright, indirect sunlight, or add a small grow light, and you'll watch the colors return like paint on a canvas. But what if the leaves turn tan or crisp with bleached scars? That's the opposite problem: too much harsh light. Direct midday sun can literally burn the thick foliage, leaving lasting patches. The fix is simple: soften the light with a sheer curtain, or shift the plant a few feet back from the window. Now, if you notice yellowing leaves starting from the vine, paired with a soggy smell in the soil, you're looking at the early stages of root rot. This is the snake plant's quiet cry that its roots are drowning. Repotting into fast-draining soil and trimming any mushy roots can often save the day. And those brown, crispy tips along the edges? That's usually stress from minerals. Fluoride in tap water, salt buildup from fertilizer, or even just hard water. It's not deadly, but it is preventable with filtered water or a regular soil flush. Each of these colors tells a clear story. The trick is learning to see them not as flaws, but as clues. Your snake plant's way of holding up a sign that says, "Help me adjust." And to give the right adjustment, we need to understand light in a whole new way. 5. Light science beyond low light tolerant. For years, snake plants have been marketed as low light tolerant, which many plant parents understandably take to mean they love the dark. But tolerance is not preference. In truth, snake plants are sun seekers at heart, adapted to bright, indirect light beneath open African skies. In dim rooms, they'll survive, but growth slows to a crawl and variegation fades like forgotten ink. So how do you know if your plant is getting enough light? Use the shadow test. Hold your hand above the leaves. A sharp, crisp shadow means too much direct sun, which risks sunburn. A faint, blurry shadow means the light is just right. If there's no shadow at all, your plant is starving for light. You can also try a lux meter app on your phone. Aim for that sweet spot of 2,500 to 10,000 lux for steady growth. And here's something many don't realize. Variegated snake plants, those with creamy stripes or golden edges, need more light to maintain their patterns. In darker corners, they'll revert to plain green, not because they're unhealthy, but because green leaves photosynthesize better under stress. If your home doesn't offer enough natural brightness, don't worry. A simple LED grow light placed nearby for a few hours a day can mimic the gentle touch of the sun. Just keep it at the right distance to avoid scorching. Light isn't just survival fuel, it's the energy that brings out the plant's full beauty. And once light is balanced, the next piece of the puzzle is water, where the snake plant's needs may surprise you. 6. Watering diagnosed by leaf plus suelo. If there's one care mistake almost every plant parent makes at least once, it's watering a snake plant as if it were a thirsty tropical. But these plants are desert survivors, built to store reserves in their thick, sword-like leaves. They don't want frequent sips. They want patience followed by a deep, satisfying drink. The key is to let the soil dry completely between waterings, not just the top inch, but all the way down. Test it with your finger, use a wooden chopstick, or lift the pot to feel its weight. Light pots usually mean thirsty roots. If you're a gadget lover, a moisture meter can help confirm. When it finally is time, water thoroughly until it drains from the bottom, then empty the saucer so the roots never sit in stagnant water. Curling, wrinkled leaves often signal underwatering, while yellowing, mushy bases point to overwatering. The challenge is that these symptoms can look confusingly similar. That's why checking both the leaf feel and the soil state is essential. Dry soil plus limp leaves means thirst. Wet soil plus limp leaves means root suffocation. Season matters too. In the heat of summer, you may water every 2 to 3 weeks, but in winter dormancy, once a month or even less may be enough. Over time, you'll find a rhythm that matches your plant's environment. Mastering watering isn't about a strict schedule. It's about listening to your plant. And once water is in harmony, the next big player steps in. The soil and the pot itself, the foundation that determines everything above. 7. Soil and potting science. Water and light may get most of the attention, but the truth is your snake plant's real story begins below the surface, in its soil and pot. Too often we buy a plant and leave it in the dense, peat-heavy mix it came with, only to watch the roots suffocate in soggy conditions. Snake plants, coming from rocky, fast-draining regions, crave air around their roots just as much as they crave moisture in their leaves. The perfect soil mix is light, gritty, and quick to dry. Think 2 parts cactus or succulent soil, 1 part perlite or pumice, and a sprinkle of coarse sand or orchid bark. This combination mimics the airy, loose ground they evolved in, giving roots space to breathe and preventing rot. If you've ever unpotted a struggling snake plant and smelled that sour, swampy odor, you've seen what happens when soil holds too much water. Now, about the pot, bigger isn't better. When given too much space, roots sprawl endlessly and the soil stays wet too long, leaving your plant vulnerable. Snake plants actually enjoy being a little snug. It encourages them to focus energy upward, producing tall, bold leaves. Terracotta pots are an excellent choice, since their porous walls help wick away excess moisture. And don't forget, drainage holes are non-negotiable. When you get the soil and pot right, your plant gains a strong foundation, one that makes every other care step easier. But even with the perfect setup, one small detail often shows up to frustrate plant parents: those mysterious, brown, crispy leaf tips. 8. Water quality and leaf tip. You've adjusted the light, balanced the watering, chosen the perfect soil, and then suddenly those dreaded brown, crispy tips appear. It feels unfair, doesn't it? The secret culprit often isn't your care routine at all, but the quality of the water itself. Snake plants, like their Dracaena relatives, are sensitive to chemicals commonly found in tap water. Fluoride, chlorine, and excess salts can slowly build up in the soil, burning the delicate tips and margins of the leaves. The result? Dry, brown edges that make your otherwise healthy plant look stressed. The good news is this problem is more cosmetic than life-threatening. But if you want your plant to look its best, there are easy fixes. Let tap water sit out overnight to allow chlorine to evaporate. Better yet, use filtered, distilled, or collected rainwater, which is naturally gentle. Every few months, give the soil a thorough flush, watering deeply so excess salts wash out the bottom, then emptying the tray right away. Fertilizer can also play a role. Too much, or formulas heavy in superphosphate, increase fluoride stress. Stick with balanced, diluted fertilizers and use them sparingly during the active growing season. And here's a final tip. Don't panic if older leaves develop small brown tips. It's a natural part of aging. What matters is whether new leaves emerge clean and strong. If they do, you're on the right track. Once you've tamed those stubborn tips, the next challenge may be less obvious, but just as common. Tiny pests that leave mysterious marks behind. 9. Pest decoders, what they leave behind in snake plants, have a reputation for being nearly pest-proof, but even the toughest leaves can fall victim to tiny invaders. The trick is that pests rarely show themselves outright. They leave behind subtle calling cards, and if you know how to read them, you can act before the damage spreads. Start with thrips, slender insects that scrape and suck the juices from leaves. Their mark is unmistakable: silvery streaks, papery patches, and sometimes curling new growth. If you look closely, you might spot tiny black dots. That's their droppings. A quick test is to tap the leaf over a white sheet of paper. If small, dark specks fall, thrips may be present. Then there are spider mites, almost invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in groups. They cause fine stippling, a bronze look, and in heavy infestations, delicate webbing between leaves. Shake a leaf over paper and you may see the tiniest moving dots. Lastly, mealybugs love to hide at the base of the leaves, leaving behind cotton-like clusters. While they move slowly, they multiply fast, sucking strength from your plant and leaving sticky residue. So what's the fix? Start with isolation to protect your other plants. Wipe leaves with a damp cloth or spray them down in the sink to physically remove pests. Follow up with insecticidal soap or horticultural oil, repeating every 7-10 days to break their life cycle. Consistency is key. Remember, pests thrive in still, dusty conditions. Simply keeping leaves clean and rotating your plant improves airflow, making it less inviting for unwelcome guests. And while pests can be frustrating, another silent threat comes from the environment itself: cold stress and seasonal dormancy. 10. Temperature stress and dormancy. Even the most attentive plant parent can be caught off guard by temperature shifts. Snake plants hail from warm, dry regions. And while they're tough, they draw the line when temperatures dip below about 10 degrees. A single cold draft from a window in winter or the blast of an air conditioner in summer can scar their leaves, leaving mushy, water-soaked spots that never heal. It feels sudden, but really it's the plant telling you, this climate isn't safe for me. Then there's dormancy, the quiet season that often puzzles plant owners. During colder months or shorter days, your snake plant may simply stop growing. No new shoots, no taller leaves, it just rests. Many mistake this pause for poor health, but it's actually survival wisdom at work. The plant is conserving energy, focusing on its roots until light and warmth return. Your role shifts during this time. Water far less, sometimes only once every 6 to 8 weeks. Pause fertilizing, hold off on repotting, and resist the urge to wake it up with extra care. Instead, offer stability, a spot away from drafts, consistent light, and gentle patience. Think of dormancy as the plant's deep breath, preparing for its next burst of growth. When spring arrives, you'll often see fresh shoots, stronger than before. Understanding this rhythm not only saves your plant from stress, it teaches you something too, that rest is part of growth and stillness is not failure. Next, we'll untangle a few myths that swirl around snake plants, separating science from superstition so you can focus on what truly matters. 11. Myths versus science. Few houseplants carry as much myth and mystery as the snake plant. You've probably heard it called the bedroom oxygen machine, or even the air purifier of all air purifiers. While there's truth in these claims, the science tells a more balanced story. Yes, snake plants use a special process called CAM photosynthesis, which allows them to take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen at night. That makes them unusual compared to many plants. But does that mean one snake plant will transform your bedroom air? Not quite. Studies show that while they contribute oxygen, the volume is modest. It won't replace ventilation or fresh air. The famous NASA Clean Air study is another part of the legend. It showed that snake plants can absorb toxins like formaldehyde and benzene. The catch? Those experiments were done in sealed chambers, not in a typical living room with airflow. In real homes, while the effect is smaller, the psychological benefits of having plants, reduced stress, boosted focus, a calmer atmosphere, are very real. Then there are the spiritual beliefs. In some cultures, snake plants are thought to guard against negative energy acting as a silent shield at entryways. While science can't measure that, many plant parents will tell you they simply feel better having one nearby. And that feeling, in its own way, is proof enough. So celebrate your snake plant for what it is. Resilient, beautiful, supportive, but not magical. Its real magic lies in how it changes you, your routine, your mood, and your sense of connection. And with the myths cleared up, let's move into something far more practical. Quick fix solutions you can reach for when problems pop up. 12. Quick fix playbook. Symptom, action. By now, you know how to read the language of your snake plant, but sometimes when life gets busy, you just want quick answers. That's where a simple playbook comes in. Symptom on one side, action on the other. Think of it as your emergency guide when your plant suddenly looks unhappy. If the leaves are curled and wrinkled with bone-dry soil, the fix is a deep soak. Water thoroughly until liquid drains freely, then let the soil rest until it's fully dry again. If leaves are soft and yellowing at the base, with damp soil that smells sour, it's likely root rot. Act fast, unpot the plant, trim away mushy roots, and replant in fresh, airy soil. Hold back on watering until the roots reestablish. For brown, crispy tips, suspect fluoride or salt buildup. Switch to filtered or rainwater if possible. And once in a while, flush the soil by running water through it to wash out excess minerals. If you spot silvery streaks, papery patches, or fine webbing, you're dealing with pests. Isolate the plant, wipe the leaves, and treat with insecticidal soap or horticultural oil, repeating every 7-10 days until no signs remain. And for sunburn patches, dry, tan scars on the leaves, simply move the plant back from harsh direct rays. Those scars won't heal, but new growth will emerge strong. This playbook isn't a shortcut to skip care. It's a way to act quickly with confidence when something feels off. And if you want to avoid most of these issues altogether, the secret lies in steady, preventative habits. That's what we'll uncover next. 13. Prevention habits. 80% problem solved. Here's the truth. Most snake plant problems never have to happen. With a handful of small, steady habits, you can prevent nearly 80% of the issues we've talked about, long before they show up on the leaves. Start with rotation. Every 2 weeks, give your plant a gentle quarter turn. This balances its growth, prevents leaning, and improves airflow around the leaves, making it harder for pests to settle in. Next is leaf care. Instead of misting, which can trap moisture in tight folds, wipe the leaves with a soft, damp cloth once a month. This keeps dust from blocking sunlight and photosynthesis and gives you the perfect chance to check for early signs of pests. Then there's seasonal watering. In summer, you might water every 2 to 3 weeks, but in winter, cut back drastically. Snake plants slow their growth during cold months, and too much water during this time is the #1 killer. Another golden rule: quarantine new plants. Any new green friend you bring home should spend a couple of weeks away from your existing collection. This simple step keeps pests or fungal issues from spreading. Finally, set a routine of gentle check-ins. Don't wait until leaves turn yellow or curl. Take a minute while you sip your morning coffee to glance at soil moisture, leaf texture, and light. These micro moments of awareness save you from major rescues later. Prevention isn't glamorous, but it's the difference between constantly troubleshooting and simply enjoying a thriving, glowing plant. And speaking of enjoyment, let's pause to reflect on what this kind of mindful care can give back to you, the plant parent. 40, the mindful minute caring for a snake plant is more than keeping a leaf alive. It's a quiet practice of presence. Think about the kind of plant parent you are. You notice small details others might miss. You pause to touch the soil. You celebrate the first sign of a new shoot. These aren't just tasks. They're rituals that root you in the present moment. When you wipe a leaf clean, you're not just removing dust. You're slowing down, giving attention, and finding calm in a world that often rushes beyond. When you wait for the soil to dry before watering, you're practicing patience, trusting timing instead of forcing growth. And when you move your plant gently toward the light, you're reminded that growth happens best when we lean into what nourishes us. These little acts may feel small, but over time, they shape more than your plant's health. They shape you. They remind you that consistency is more powerful than intensity, that rest is just as important as action, and that beauty takes time to unfold. Your snake plant becomes a mirror, reflecting back your own journey of resilience and care. And that's what makes these green companions so extraordinary. They don't just decorate our homes, they steady our hearts. Now, as we bring this journey full circle, let's gather everything we've learned and see how decoding your snake plant's leaves can transform not just the plant, but your space and your spirit. So here we are, full circle. We've learned that your snake plant's leaves are not random decorations, but living messages. Curls whisper about water and roots. Colors reveal light, stress, or even hidden pests. Brown tips tell stories of minerals in the water. Every mark is a signal, every shift a quiet conversation between you and your plant. And if you followed along, you now hold the tools to translate those messages into action. More than that, you've discovered that caring for a snake plant is really about caring for yourself. It teaches patience when you wait for soil to dry. It teaches balance when you find the perfect spot of light. And it teaches resilience, because even when things go wrong, this plant can bounce back with just a little understanding. So next time you walk past your snake plant, don't just glance at it, listen. Its leaves are telling you exactly what it needs. And in learning that language, you may find you are also learning more about your own rhythm of growth. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Earthly Delights. If this video has helped you see your plant and yourself a little differently, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share this with a fellow plant lover, and drop a comment describing your snake plant's leaves in just 3 words. I can't wait to read them. Until next time, keep growing, slowly, steadily, and beautifully rooted.